So day one, that was the one of the hardest days of the whole trip. It had suddenly become real. I'd gone from having the adventure as an idea in my mind, something I would do, something the future self of me would do, to actually having to do it, waking up and thinking, I'm actually in this now, I've got to do this. And no doubt that many people listening, maybe all of you, have had that at some point. You've woken up and thought, oh no, this is the day now, I've got to do this. I'd sort of put that off for my future self, but it's me now, it's me that's got to do this. And in that moment you realise your current self and your future self are actually the same person. You're not necessarily braver, richer, smarter or anything, and more hardworking. You're actually the same person. And so that was quite a realisation. I didn't actually wake up on purpose that day as well. The sun came through the curtains. It was so bright. It was the middle of June. No, the 1st of June. And it was so warm in that flat as well. And my eyes opened themselves. I couldn't stay in my sleeping bag anymore. I was on a hard wooden floor. But I tried. I kept trying to go back to sleep. I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to accept this reality. But I had that real sinking feeling in my stomach. It felt so heavy. It was anxiety. But it was different anxiety to what I'd had in the past. It wasn't anxiety at nothing, being mentally unwell. It was real anxiety for a good reason, which is, in some ways it's worse because you know you've got to do something about it. You can't just take medication or you can't just regulate yourself. You've actually got something in front of you that's really scaring you and you've got to do something about it. So I didn't want to. I just wanted to curl up in the ball in my sleeping bag on Jack's floor and just not get out of bed all day. I actually considered that. I considered leaving on the 2nd of June instead. But then I knew that had become the 3rd of June. And no, I knew I had to leave on this day. I'd calculated it so well. It was supposed to be a 6-month journey from Cornwall to Australia. Ended up being 2 years. But the 6-month journey, the logic behind that was, as I go from Cornwall across Europe and down, leaving on the 1st of June, the way the seasons work, I'll always be kind of warm, because by the time I got to Singapore, Australia, it would be their summer. So it was important to keep up with dates. I also had all the visas planned and all of that stuff. So no, I had to leave on the 1st of June. I'd come down a couple of days earlier to say goodbye to people. It was the first place I'd really felt completely at home. I was part of a social group. I had friends. I had meaning there. I had something to do. I had I was in the Expedition Society. All these things made me feel quite complete, and that was the first time I'd really felt that ever. Obviously, I'd felt it as a child growing up with my parents and school and everything, but that was different. That was different life. So came down to say goodbye to everyone, see everyone again. And that was actually the reason for leaving from Falmouth, from Cornwall, because that first and only place I'd known as home as an adult was ending. I'd graduated from university. I couldn't stay there anymore whether I liked it or not, because if it was up to me I would have just never left. I would have stayed there, but I had no home anymore. I was mid-20s, couldn't go and live back with my parents. Nowhere else in the country was home, so I had to go and find it, really. I had to go and explore the world, find what home was now, because I'd only really known it once. And so that was one of the driving forces of this adventure. There were so many, there wasn't just one reason. People ask me, why did you do this trip? There's not just one reason, but a lot of those will come up through future episodes, I'm sure. But I was sitting there in the flat with Jack. He was the real last tie with Falmouth. Lots of friends had already left, and more were going to leave, and I was one of them now, leaving. So we just sat up. We sat up until about 4 p.m. in June. And as you know, in summer, the sun sets at around 10 p.m. So we had plenty of time still. Too much time, really. If it was winter, it would have been a much quicker leaving time, I think. But there was always one more thing to do, always something else I needed to do that meant I couldn't leave right now. And I just kept lying to myself, I suppose. Oh, I've got to do this, got to do that. All better have another coffee, better do this, better watch another episode of Peep Show. And then that became a season, and then another season. So, and it took Jack at one point around 3:30 to say, "You actually going to leave today, Tom?" And I just thought, yeah, now's the time. Just get out the front door. Just pick up the heavy backpack. It wasn't that heavy, but it felt so heavy. It was just picking it up. I felt so light. It was putting it on my shoulders, adjusting it, putting it around my waist. The way it changed my center of gravity. It was a lot of effort, and I was walking so slowly. It was Jack that had to lead me out of his flat. So it was a bit easier leaving with Jack, because it was almost like I was putting the responsibility on him to get me out. So left with Jack, walked out into the high street. It was a normal day, normal summer day in Falmouth. Tourists are out, locals are doing their business. Lovely cobbled high street, very thin, narrow roads, all the shops open. And then my brother Matt came to join us. He wanted to see me off because he was living there at that point. He became a student there. And he took some pictures for me, which turned out really, really well. And we just walked out together. It was really lovely. My best friend and my brother walked me out of Falmouth. And then Matt had to get back. But Jack followed me. I should really have started hitchhiking there. But I just carried on walking. I didn't want to put my thumb out. I didn't want to actually begin the trip. I was walking, and I was okay with that. I was making progress. And as long as I was making progress, I could say to myself, you don't actually have to hitchhike yet, because you're making progress. You've left. Well done. And I thought, if I get to the end of day one and I've walked a mile, great, because that's 1 mile I didn't have yesterday. And having done that, maybe the tomorrow Tom would be a little bit braver, a little more confident, and he'd be able to do it. So carried on walking. Jack left me at the edge of the next town along, Penryn, and he said, can't go any further, I've got to go back. We'd walked for about an hour or so, and he had to walk an hour back, so he left me at that point. And it was a solo journey now. I had to be alone, had to do it on my own. It was just one of the things about the trip, really. It was my journey of growth, and it would have been completely different with someone else. So had to leave Jack there, and I saw him recede into the horizon. And as soon as he actually left, then I felt really alone. The air got really cold, and the car tires rolling over the concrete got really loud, and I just felt completely alone, completely out of place, like a child again. And I suppose at that point I'd left home again. So I was out in the big scary world. And it wasn't scary, it was just a little Cornish road, but at that point I saw the whole trip. I saw the gravity of what was ahead of me. And I thought, I've done hitchhiking before, but that's only been relatively local. I've gone to France, I've gone to little bits of Europe that are close to the UK. I've gone all around the UK, but I haven't been beyond Europe. I haven't been into Russia. I haven't been into these countries that are going to get progressively more different. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, China. And I'd read adventure stories before leaving on my own of these sorts of places, and the stories I've read were ones that I thought, I can't be in those situations. I don't know how to deal with them. Really brave people do those, but I'm not that sort of person. And I don't think it was a panic attack, because I looked composed. My breathing was relatively normal, but inside I was going through this kind of realization that it wasn't me that could do it. It was someone else's trip. So that really threw a spanner in the works. I couldn't put my thumb out now. I thought, I can't start on this trip. I can't go. But I thought, I can walk. I can keep walking. So carried on walking. But then the pavement ended, and it was just a single lane across a bridge with cars giving way. And I thought, there's no way to walk now. Like, there's constantly cars moving. It's now or never. I've got to either hitch a lift here or turn back. That was it. So, needed some time to think, needed some time to just... Because I knew I wanted to do this trip, I just needed some time to convince myself to do it. So, I walked down this little country lane, the sort of lane that it sees maybe 1 or 2 cars a day. It might have been a local lane, I don't know. Maybe it was a dead end, but it was very overgrown. I walked down there and just receded into the bushes and got a packet of biscuits out, made myself a cup of tea, and I got my phone out and I just looked at my map and I thought I could see all the way from here to to Singapore. And at that moment it hit me what I was doing wrong. I was looking at the whole task, this huge task, at once. And I was thinking, I've got to get from where I am now to here. A bit like looking at a set of stairs and thinking, I'm at the bottom and I've got to get to the top in one step, which you can't do. No one's going to attempt that. But what they can do is they can say, I'm going to go from here to that first step. Once I'm there, if I want to continue, I can go from the first step to the second step to the third step, and then eventually you'll be at the top. And I knew that already, I just needed to be reminded of it. So what I did was, on my phone, I just zoomed in to where I was now. All I could see was from there to Dover, which was it's about 4 days. It was less than what I'd done already. Here to Dover, edge of one side of the UK to the other, widthways, not very challenging at all. I could even walk it if the path was permitting. And suddenly I thought, I can do this, I can do that. And I made a promise with myself. I said, if I get to Dover and I want to turn around, I will. I've tried, but it's not for me. And with that, I could stand up, I could move again, there was no inhibition anymore, there was no overly weighted feeling of the backpack. I could actually get out and put my thumb out. As soon as I did, the first car that drove past came from that lane and picked me up. It was a lovely old man who was on the way to Truro, which is the nearest city to Falmouth. And it was about a half an hour ride, so that was pretty good for the first day. And after that point, he dropped me outside the city on the A road going out of the country, into the country, towards Plymouth, a couple of hours away. And I thought, that's it, that's good for today. As I was getting ready to walk off and find somewhere to camp, I started making a sign. And being really naive, I thought I'll make a sign saying Singapore. That was the original destination before it became Australia. And I just thought I'll do that. I'll set it up for myself tomorrow. Started scribbling on the sign. And then I hear this beep in the distance, and these 2 guys pick me up. They say, where are you going? And I said, Singapore. And he said, I can't take you that far, but I can take you to Plymouth. So didn't even try at this point. But yeah, so I'd already made it 2.5 hours away from Falmouth. And at this point, I just thought, well, it was about 7 o'clock then. And I just thought, no, I've earned it. I've earned this sleep now. I'm in a really good place. I'm on the edge of this A road. Tomorrow morning, I can step out my tent, put it away, and just hitchhike from here, just through the trees, 30 meters away. Barely anything. Great position. I was right next to a pub, so I could fill my water up if I wanted to. And that was it. And that was day 1. That first day was step 1. The first step of, it's probably several thousand, but that was day 1. Day 2 was much easier because I'd already started. And it wasn't a linear progression up a staircase, metaphorically. It was, some steps were much harder to get up than others. Some were sort of big rock faces, I suppose, that you had to really be prepared for. And as with any adventure story as well, when you get to a step in the future, you have to have done the previous steps to be ready to do that. And so it was quite good that countries like China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Laos, Vietnam, they were way in the future, because by the time I got to them, I'd been through so many mistakes, so many challenges, so many problems, so many difficult people, so many mistakes that I'd made to make things difficult for myself. I'd been through so many of those that I was ready to face a bigger challenge. But the thing is, if I'd have gone straight to a bigger challenge, I wouldn't have been ready for that. I wouldn't have known what to do. So that's a real lesson I've taught myself, is being scared of doing something. It could be starting a new career, it could be starting a charity, you could be doing your own adventure, something like that. If you're scared of the challenges to come, just have faith that you'll be ready for them. By just starting, you'll be ready for the challenges that are going to come in the future. Because there's going to be unforeseen things. It's a complete unknown going into something new, going into a big challenge. You can't predict what's going to come. You can try and predict it, but you're not going to do very well at that. So you'll be ready when the time comes. Just have faith in that. And if not, there's enough of you that's latent to know what to do, to work it out in the situation. So it's really, an adventure is anything that puts you in an uncomfortable place that forces you to grow. And there's a really interesting thing called epigenetics. I don't know if you've heard of it. Basically, most of your genetic code is latent. It's not actually switched on. The way you switch it on is by putting yourself in new places and new situations. Have you ever gone into a new place or situation, like you've joined a public speaking group or you've started a new job you didn't think you were ready for, and after about 10 minutes or so, you suddenly feel able to do it? You suddenly feel a bit like a different person. That's because new parts of your genome have been activated. You're literally a different person to who you were before. And that's another thing. The only way to become who you want to become, to do what you want to do, is to actually just start doing it. Just start doing it. Be clumsy, be stupid, be an imposter, and you'll get there. So when I started this podcast, this is technically episode 5, but it's actually about episode 20. I did so many episodes beforehand that they just weren't good. They were monotone, they were short, they were not getting to the point, and they weren't good enough to put out. But I just had to start. I had to start practicing, and I knew that I'd get to the point where I can start putting episodes out like this one. And this one's already better than episode 1. There's lots of things that have improved. Presentation, for one. I feel like it's more structured as well. It's maybe easy to understand. And I know now that when I look back at episode 100, from episode 100 to episode 5, it's going to be embarrassing. But I had to start here to get there. You're not going to go straight to episode 100 and be amazing. And one final take-home message, I suppose, is I'm not any less scared of new things. I'm just a bit braver. The idea of going off now and hitchhiking still scares me. It still makes me really uncomfortable. And I probably wouldn't do it without a good reason. And I thought that doing this big trip would mean I'm not scared of anything anymore. If I can get through all these scary things, if I can get to the other side of the world by hitchhiking and put myself in uncomfortable position after uncomfortable position, I'll just become a person who isn't scared of anything. And the truth is, what seems to happen is you don't get any less scared. You just get better able at dealing with things. Because you've seen yourself do it already. You know you can do it. So another thing is talking on the telephone. I used to have a terrible fear of that. I couldn't do it. Took a job at the call center. Still makes me just as uncomfortable, just as scared of what's going to happen. But I can do it because I've seen myself do it over 100 times, way more than 100. So I can just do it now. I can say to myself, "You've done it. Why can't you do it now? Go do it. Done." So that might be a bit strange for some people to hear someone like me who's done this big trip thinking it hasn't changed how scared I get about unpredictable things and risky things. But I do still get scared, which is probably healthy. It's probably actually a good thing that I get scared about things that are risky and unpredictable, because I think that's a normal reaction to something scary and unpredictable. It's not something you should avoid. It's something you should let in. Your body's trying to tell you something. It's trying to become more alert as well. Your heart rate increases when you're scared. So there's more oxygen in your brain, so you can think better, you can perceive better, you can look for more opportunities to be successful. So we'll end it there. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.